What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Matty P here with another episode of Steelers Touchdown Under. We're going to do a longer show today. I know it's been a little bit quiet this week after we all obviously had the Steelers beat the New York Giants to go 6-2, going into the bye. I figured I'd do a bit of a longer one. Just I don't know what the weekend's going to look like. I'm going to try and do a live. I know it's been ages since I did a live, so we'll try and do that. But it is the bye week, so a lot of people are taking it off. I saw a photo snap from TJ Watt on his Instagram with his wife near a beach somewhere, so they look like they're chilling. That is a good thing. His wife's pregnant as well, so it's going to be, we've talked about that before, but congratulations, TJ Watt there. So on today's show, I wanted to cover, or whenever you watch it, I wanted to cover off the Steelers rookies. I want to give a bit of a rookie report. Now, for those who've been following me for a long time, back from my BTSC and they're now SCN days, the early days of the channel, I'd talk a lot about rookies throughout the season, particularly, and then I'd start looking at the college players as well. So we're going to get back to those college profiles pretty soon. I want a couple more weeks of college football before I start that. Also, the Steelers are doing well, man. Like, we're focused on this season rather than draft picks, but I will start doing a couple of early things. But I want to talk to you about rookies today and give a bit of a mid-season grade now that the Steelers have played 8 games. So, first of all, let's have a reminder of who the Steelers picked in the draft. Now, if you're a diehard Steel fan, you're probably going, what the heck? I know this. But the reality is we've not seen many of these blokes, right? Vitanu, we saw barely any of him before he was IR for the season. Zach Frazier, we've seen a bit of, so we'll talk about him. Warren Wilson, we kept thinking we're going to see some of him, and we haven't. He still can. We might see him this season. Some people have said redshirt him for the year, effectively. Let him keep learning. Don't injure his body anymore. But technically, he can return in 4 weeks' time. Peyton Wilson, we're seeing a bit of, so we'll talk about him. Mason McCormick, forced by injuries. We'll talk about and a season-ending injury to James Daniels, so we'll talk about him. Logan Lee, we can't talk about, not played in the game time. Ryan Watts, IR for the year. So that is where we're sitting. We really can only talk about 3 players. 3 players, 7 draft picks, 4 guys taken, in the 3rd round or better. And we can only talk about 3 blokes. Kind of sucks. But at the same time, the 3 blokes are at important positions and positions that usually require a bit of experience to be able to perform. So with that being the case, it is really important that we do cover them off. I will give an honorable mention and focus and discussion on Beanie Bishop, because he is playing like a player that should have been drafted in the 4th to 7th round. Shannon said he should have been a 4th round pick. Everyone thought he should have gone in the 2nd. So we will talk about Beanie as well, because Beanie is proving his worth a heck ton. So we'll talk about Beanie Bishop as an undrafted free agent that came in. I did say rookies. I didn't say draft picks, but the emphasis will always be on the draft picks. All right. So with that being the case, let's kick off with Mason McCormick. Now, Mason McCormick didn't start the first 2 games, came in the 3rd game, and has played every snap since. Right, massive effort from Mason McCormick, including playing on special teams. So if you look at actually his overall special teams performance plus his offensive performance, huge contribution from Mason McCormick. Now I'm going to talk about his penalties as well, just because he's had 2 penalties, 1 holding, 1 false start. It might be a little bit different when we look at PFF. I know everyone wants PFF numbers, but they do some grading that that Pro Football Reference doesn't do. So let's also look at Zach Frazier in fairness as well. Played 100% of the first 5 games, played 71% in Las Vegas before he went down with his injury. I expect him back after the bye, but credit to McCollum, he's done well in the absence. If we look at Zach Frazier as well, I think he's got 3 penalties to his name. No, none. What am I talking about? I'm slamming Zach Frazier. So from those 2 blokes' perspective, that's pretty, we probably thought a 2nd round draft pick and a need at center, Zach Frazier, and someone that could have crept in the back of the 1st, Zach Frazier, would be playing like this. But Mason McCormick is that 4th round guy, really experienced college player, someone we thought we'd see a lot of in year 2. Imagine how good he's going to be in year 2. This is proving, too, that they don't maybe need to re-sign James Daniels. And that's it, because it is James Daniels' final season on his contract. So let's look at pass blocking overall for the Steelers, though, to get an assessment of how these guys have performed. Now, if you look at PFF grades, I know people hate them, but at least you start to get bands in categories. Well, when you look at that, Zach Frazier's the fourth best on the season so far for the Steelers with a 63.8. Most people probably give him a 70 out of 100 anyway for his season performance if you were just rating it just in general. And Mason McCormick is sitting down there in a 56.4. Now, that is their overall grade from a pass blocking perspective. Pass blocking. Remember, there has been a few sacks that have gone, that were happening for Justin Fields and for Russell Wilson. But when you look at the run blocking grade, that's a bit of a different story. If you look at run blocking grade so far in the season, Zach Frazier is 13th best in the league. 13th best offensive lineman in the league. James Daniels he only played 100 snaps, played 2 games effectively. He was sitting there at 92.5. But if you look at this, Zach Frazier, in terms of 6 games, and I could start sorting this by, minimum snaps and stuff like that, that's pretty good, right? That's pretty good. If we go to run blocking grade for all the Steelers offensive linemen so far on the season, and it's just spinning up for you. Okay, here you go. Mason McCormick is then about the same as his pass blocking grade. So that kind of, is what it is. That's kind of not great. But this is just a PFF grade. This isn't definitely how they're playing or definitely how they're not. They're not committing massive penalties. He's a 4th round guy. This is pretty good, right? And if we go back to the pass blocking side of things, like you got Dan Moore is the best. Pass blocking. Dan Moore's the best pass blocker on here, right? So I don't know whether, and he's allowed 2 sacks on the season, right? Broderick Jones allowed 7, but that's the reality of it. And McCormick has only allowed 1 quarterback hit, no sacks according to PFF. So that's pretty good from him. So you got to be pretty happy with that from a 4th round guy that did not think he would be starting in the first half of the season for sure. People talked about could he work his way into the starting lineup through the season. That's a whole different thing to having to actually start the season. All right, that covers the offensive blokes. Let's talk about Peyton Wilson. Now, Peyton Wilson, we've seen a lot of Peyton Wilson. He's played 47% of the defensive snaps, 67% of the special team snaps. We've seen him in more games. In some games, we've seen him in more than others. I think if we can go on toggle the per game. No, it's not going to do it the other way. Sorry, I've got Peyton Wilson here. Yep. So, special team snaps, he has played season high 57.9% of the defensive snaps against Dallas and a season low of 36% against Denver. Yeah. So, played pretty good. Overall, I think you'd say a lot of people have these first round grades on him and stuff like that. Linebacker is a very hard position to adjust into the NFL. He's had 39 combined tackles on the season, 1 tackle for loss, 2 quarterback hits, no sacks yet, no interceptions, no forced fumbles, none of the big splash stuff. He's allowed an 87.5% completion rate on the season, a 92.4 quarterback rating, 7.1 yards per completion. But he's only missed 3 tackles on the season. He's only missed 7% of his tackles, which is pretty good from a rookie linebacker. It's not bad. It's a decent season, and he's playing a position where he's going to have to acclimate, and he will continue to acclimate as the season rolls on. So I'm not worried about it. How does that look elsewhere? Well, if you look at all the linebackers in the league, and remember some people playing 4-3, so this is some of these stats get a little bit skewed when you have a player like a Logan Wilson at Cincinnati, who'd be an outside linebacker to some degree in our system. Same with Leo Chanel is pretty adaptable. Landon Roberts has the third highest defensive grade in the league at linebacker. What a champion. We love Landon Roberts. But I'm here to talk about rookies. And Peyton Wilson is quite down the list. I could keep going here, right? So that's kind of, and there's guys in this list like Buddy Johnson, who the Steelers had a few years back that's with Dallas now. Like, I know he's not a rookie, but he's doing better. And that kind of, I don't know, maybe I bought into the hype. I was obviously someone that, for anyone that followed someone on the channel, followed all drive content, I didn't want Peyton Wilson picked in the first 3 or 4 rounds. I didn't. I said he was a 4th round draft pick. They got him at the end of the 3rd. I didn't hate that. I thought that was really, really good value. But we've still got so Peyton Wilson's here at 72, but Johnson's 63. So, but it is what it is. What it is. He's adjusting. If you look at all the players taken this year drafted, Peyton Wilson is 8 out of 19 linebackers. But a guy like a Junior Colson, who we thought had a much better season, he's been injured a bit too. He's down there in 18. Trice Knight, who I thought was high on, hasn't had as good a season for Seattle, but he could really come on in the second half. Cooper, Edward Cooper, who a lot of people talked about, he's not the best middle linebacker. Trotter's not the best there. Peyton Wilson's not that far away. So, but the difference with all these other guys is that Peyton Wilson has played the second most amount of total snaps, right? Guys like Trotter haven't. Trotter's played like the 14th most amount of snaps. So he's played like the 6th least amount of snaps, however way you want to say it. So Peyton Wilson, it's a bit of a different story. He's having to do things a lot more than other players. And a couple of sacks here would probably shift his grade right up there. But when you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers defensive grades overall, now this combines every position. Peyton Wilson's not doing too bad. 13th, right? 13th. Remember, he's playing a lot of snaps, position where the Steelers have had some leaky coverage as well. They've had some injuries at times in the secondary, which has affected the linebackers. They've had outside linebackers injured as well, which also allows other teams to kind of pick on the way they want to play and the scheme that they have. So it's not bad, all things considered. And I think he'll keep going. But you know what? I didn't want to make this, a forever podcast. So let's move on to Beanie. But I think from a Peyton Wilson perspective, pretty good. I'm going to give all these guys grades at the end. Then you look at Beanie Bishop. And Beanie Bishop there is a defensive grade of 60.7, 15th best out of the Steelers' 27 players. Beanie Bishop, when we look at him from a Pro Football Reference perspective, pretty incredible in the 3 games that he's participated in. He did have a couple of shockers. He's played in 8, the 3 games that he started in, I should say. 3 interceptions. So if he gets a start, he's got an interception. That's his record right now. 5 pass defenses, 0.5 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, 1 quarterback hit, 25 combined tackles. If he could triple that this season, 9 interceptions would be pretty crazy. But if he doubled those stats, that would be an incredible season for an undrafted rookie slot corner. He's only allowed a 56.4% completion rate, 233 yards, so that's 10.6 yards per completion, and allowed a quarterback rating of 59. Now, that is hugely influenced by the interceptions he's had, but so the freaking what? I love it. He's only missed 2 tackles on the season. You see rookie cornerbacks sometimes miss, particularly in the slot. He's marked up against some good wide receivers as well, or wide receivers with a high reputation, and he's played 71% of the defensive snaps that have been available for him in games that he's played. Pretty freaking cool from Beanie Bishop. Okay, cool. Looking at him as well over the grades, the last 2 games, he's had 2 of his better games at 78.8 grades with Pro Football Focus, PFF. He only had a 64.5 this past week, but his tackling grades have gotten much, much better as you see him go 78 against Dallas, 76 against Las Vegas, 82.8 against New York Jets, and then 83.6 against New York Giants. So pretty good there. I'm enjoying what I'm seeing out of Beanie Bishop, 100%. I think Beanie Bishop is going to prove to be a real weapon throughout the rest of the season, and a hugely cheap pickup. And they just got to do the right thing and keep him on the Steelers in 3 years' time if he continues to perform, instead of letting him go like Mike Hilton, which I think they'll be in the position to do that with some of their aging cornerbacks as well. So with all that being said, it's very difficult if, let's say, we've got the 8 draft picks, if you include Beanie Bishop in here, and you do have the situation where we've got 4 guys that were drafted that are on IR or aren't playing or haven't played a game or injured. Let's give a grade to some of them. So Zach Frazier, I think he gets a B+. You can't fault him, probably B+. You can't fault him for being injured. Would have been, I think, you could have easily had him A-, B+ based on what we've seen. He's getting to the second level. He's playing well. We're not having too many errant snaps. Some of that's been on Justin Fields. It's been a lot cleaner with Russell Wilson, but McCollum stepped in well for him. So we'll give Zach Frazier a B+. Roman Wilson, we haven't seen him, so obviously we're not giving him a grade. Peyton Wilson, I'm going to give him a B-. It's not that he's done anything terrible, but he hasn't quite necessarily lived up fully to the reputation. But I expect that to get better. I did want to say C+, but I'm going to give him a B- because the Steelers have had a lot of injuries in the positions around him. He's had to be brought in. You know, and then Patrick Queen's not playing great football as well. So I don't know how much impact that's fully having on Wilson as well. And then Mason McCormick, I think being brought in, 4th round draft pick, even though he's experienced, having to be slotted in, he's not killing blokes. He's only allowed a couple of hurries and stuff like that. I think you've got to give him a B+. I give him a B+ for what he's doing. And if he continues to have the season he's having now, you could easily at the end of this year give him an A. So I'm going to give Mason McCormick a B+. But you let me know in the comments. Do you agree with those grades? Have I been too nice? Have I been unfair? What do you think of Zach Frazier? What do you think of Mason McCormick? What do you think of Peyton Wilson? And what do you think of Beanie Bishop? I'm Matty P. As always, go Steelers.